Under the stormy skies of American politics, Eric Trump, son of President Donald Trump, has just made a move signaling his hold over a key position in Vietnam's real estate arena. At the same time, his brother appears to be ushering in a seismic new era, where the presidency of the United States becomes the Trump family legacy, merely awaiting the day of succession. However, Washington's Greenland Dream, a symbol of power and geopolitical ambition, has suddenly evaporated into thin air. From continent to ocean, red alerts are blaring. The U.S. Congress has swiftly triggered the Taiwan Plus Act, erecting a defensive wall for the front line against China, with Taiwan as the faithful outpost. What's more alarming is that leaked reports about China's inflatable boat units may just be the tip of the iceberg, while a full-scale amphibious landing is being secretly wound up in the shadows. In the East China Sea, a nameless skirmish between Chinese helicopters and mysterious aircraft unfolds like an omen from hell. Quietly, Beijing is locking arms with Afghanistan, shaping a sinister triangular information that tracks the entire region into an inescapable spiral of calculation and counter-move. In the Middle East, an unprecedented scene in modern history. A U.S. aircraft carrier makes a frantic retreat from the Red Sea as Israel fires warning shots into the air, tolling the funeral bell for diplomacy and squeezing Syria to the brink of collapse amid civil war. Meanwhile, Iran, long seen as the spearhead of regional jihad, has officially tightened its 20-year strategic alliance with Russia, sealed by uranium and bullets. Elsewhere, the arms race is raging like a delirious fever across Europe. The haunting question looms: after Ukraine, what will Russia do next? And in this post-war tableau, Moscow quietly lays its hand on the Skyfall button, not a missile, but a declaration of war against the NATO alliance. These are fragments like ciphers of a new era, where peace is but a thin mist veiling the war machines that are slowly grinding to life. Every political move is now a hinge turn that could detonate the entire planet. Don't take your eyes off the screen, and now stay tuned for This Week in the World. Hello, you're watching This Week in the World, where current affairs are not just news, but a high-stakes crescendo on the global chessboard. This past week, every event has struck like a level of power, a twist of fate, and a forecast that left the world holding its breath. A new political wave may be rising from within the very heart of America's most powerful family. At the Qatar Economic Forum hosted by Bloomberg this week, Donald Trump Jr., eldest son of incumbent President Donald Trump, took everyone by surprise as he hinted at the possibility of following in his father's footsteps, all the way to the White House, a statement that struck the public, especially given that he had repeatedly denied any intention of entering politics until now.
When asked about the prospect of succeeding his powerful father, Donald Trump Jr. merely smiled and said, "It would be an honor. Who knows, maybe one day, if I feel it's a mission I need to undertake." A simple statement, yet one potent enough to send shockwaves through political analysts, opening a new chapter in the enduring saga of the Trump dynasty. Currently serving as executive vice president of the Trump Organization, Donald Jr., alongside his brother, Eric Trump, has steered the leading U.S. real estate conglomerate since 2016, the year President Donald Trump entered the political arena. Now, as Donald Trump seeks a third term in the White House, early signs suggest the presidency could become a family legacy. Trump Jr. did not shy away from emphasizing his father's influence, stating he has redefined the Republican Party, transforming it into the party of America first. This declaration not only underscores his loyalty, but also subtly reinforces the Trump family's indispensable role within the conservative establishment.
Meanwhile, in Vietnam, more than 13,000 kilometers away from Washington, another economic arm of the Trump dynasty is quietly making its mark. On the afternoon of February 19, representatives of the Trump Organization and their partners arrived in Ho Chi Minh City following the official approval of a $1.5 billion real estate partnership project. And just 3 days later, Eric Trump, executive vice president of the Trump Organization and the third son of the U.S. president, also made a direct visit to Vietnam, continuing to expand the Trump map in Asia.
Eric Trump has conducted surveys of several promising sites for new projects, including golf courses, luxury hotels, and notably, an iconic tower in the heart of Ho Chi Minh City. Concurrently, a $1.5 billion luxury resort and golf course in Hung Yen province officially broke ground on May 21st, with Eric Trump in attendance alongside Vietnam's King Bat Group, a key partner.
The story becomes even more compelling as Vietnam-U.S. trade relations enter a dramatic final stretch amid warnings from President Donald Trump about a potential 46% import tariff. Vietnam is racing to negotiate a resolution to ease the pressure. The Ministry of Industry and Trade has just confirmed positive progress has been made, but both sides still face a series of thorny issues that must be resolved in the upcoming negotiation round set for early June.
Vietnam, currently the third largest source of trade surplus with the U.S., faces mounting pressure to balance its trade relations amid Washington's increasing protectionist stance. Notably, during a recent U.S. visit, a Vietnamese delegation sought strategic partnerships with major corporations like Lockheed Martin, Google, SpaceX, and Westinghouse, where Vietnam signed a cooperation agreement for nuclear energy development.
Meanwhile, the frozen heart of our planet is melting at an uncontrollable pace. A dark scenario is beginning to take shape, no matter how hard humanity tries, unless we bring global temperatures closer to 1 degree Celsius threshold, a near impossible feat in the age of oil and gas. The great ice sheet will not survive. And what melts in the Arctic could soon drown Asia's coastal cities, the very places where the Trump Organization is now preparing to leave its footprint.
CNN reported this week that international scientists issued a stunning warning. Even if global warming is limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the so-called safe threshold, the massive ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica could still collapse, triggering a catastrophic sea level rise of over 65 meters. From the White House to Ho Chi Minh City, from Hung Yen to Greenland, stories of power, ambition, and climate are intertwining in a breathtaking narrative. The Trump family, with its dual arms in politics and business, appears to be accelerating its global influence at a time when the world enters an era of unprecedented uncertainty.
As the United States enters a phase of redefining its global strategy under President Donald Trump's second term, lawmakers in Washington are adopting an increasingly hardline stance in response to the challenges from China. With the balance of power in Asia tilting dangerously, the U.S. Congress is accelerating initiatives to bolster Taiwan's position as a frontline partner, right at the heart of the geopolitical storm. According to members of both the Senate and House of Representatives, have just introduced a new bill titled the Taiwan Plus Act, aimed at elevating Taiwan to a NATO Plus partner status, a move that would significantly shorten the timeline for Taiwan to access advanced U.S. weaponry.
On May 22nd, Senator Rick Scott and Representative Scott Perry unveiled the Taiwan Plus Act, a bold upgrade from the previous Porcupine Act, aimed at bringing Taiwan closer to NATO Plus status, paving the way for accelerated access to advanced U.S. weaponry. Under the act, Taipei would enjoy priority treatment akin to U.S. strategic allies like Japan, Australia, South Korea, Israel, and New Zealand. Gone are the bureaucratic hurdles, replaced by a fast-track mechanism for lethal arms deals to bolster Taiwan's defense capabilities against threats from Beijing. It is no coincidence that Taiwan was the largest buyer of U.S. weapons in 2020 and ranks third in total arms imports from the U.S. over the past 70 years. Washington recognizes that to counter the People's Liberation Army, PLA, action must be taken now. Senator Rick Scott declared, "This is the moment to send a clear message. America stands with Taiwan. We will ensure they get the weapons they need, quickly, efficiently, and on time."
But this goes far beyond legislation and press releases. At Edwards Air Force Base, often dubbed America's Aerospace Valley, a shocking alert has just been issued, sending ripples through the defense community.
Brigadier General Doug Wickert, commander of the 412th Test Wing, convened local civilian leaders to deliver a stark message. If China attacks Taiwan, the U.S. must prepare for war on its own soil. Wickert's statement was unequivocal. The war will come to us. It won't be a conflict on the other side of the globe. It will be right here. He warned of large-scale cyber attacks, disruptions to power grids, and critical infrastructure, aimed at crippling America's ability to respond from the outset. Amid this, the development of the B-21 Raider stealth bomber, a new symbol of strategic deterrence, is being fast-tracked, signaling to Beijing that if deterrence fails, retaliation will be swift and devastating.
According to multiple senior U.S. officials, President Xi Jinping is believed to have instructed the PLA to be ready for a possible assault on Taiwan by 2027. While there is no clear sign that a final decision has been made, Washington is bracing for the worst-case scenario, an industrial-scale war.
Never in recent decades have both the U.S. and China engaged in such extensive militarization, where preparation itself serves as a strategic declaration of war. Beijing denies following any fixed roadmap, but its assertiveness is increasingly evident.
President Donald Trump, who once coolly refused to commit to intervening if China launched an attack, can no longer avoid the reality. A recently leaked strategic document has just made it unmistakably clear preventing an assault on Taiwan is now the Pentagon's top priority. A senior U.S. military officer issued a blunt warning. If the U.S. is forced to intervene, this will not be a war that ends in a matter of weeks.
Admiral Samuel Paparo, commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, described the current situation as a dangerous path, with Beijing intensifying large-scale military exercises around Taiwan, as if a countdown has begun. At the LANPAC Defense Conference in Hawaii, attended by representatives from over 30 nations, including Taiwan, Paparo outlined the alliance strategy. In the early stages of a conflict, we must neutralize the PLA's critical nodes, from radar and missile launchers to command centers.
With an arsenal of high-precision weapons and long-range strike missiles quietly being deployed across the region, China's once unquestioned military advantage is now facing serious challenges. The United States currently maintains a force of around 380,000 troops across the Indo-Pacific. However, only a fraction of that force is positioned near the Taiwan Strait, an area often described as the barrel of the gun in America's defense strategy.
Last year alone, China deployed 152 warships, 3/4 of its amphibious forces, and dozens of elite brigades to encircle Taiwan in a boundary-pushing exercise. And chillingly, Beijing never declared the drills concluded. Speaking in Honolulu, Paparo warned, "This is a rehearsal, not isolated exercises." He stressed that China is on a dangerous path. Lieutenant General Yasunori Morishita, commander of Japan's Ground Self-Defense Force, also present at the conference, noted that in nearly 40 years of service, he has never seen the region's security environment so tense. He emphasized that China's grave threat compels Japan to prepare for all possible scenarios.
As tensions across the Taiwan Strait remain taut like a drawn bowstring, a bizarre phenomenon is keeping authorities in Taipei on edge. A wave of mysterious sea crossings from mainland China, unfolding amid high winds, rough seas, and the looming shadows of military helicopters overhead. In a short span of time, Taiwan's Coast Guard reported 5 illegal intrusions, involving a total of 38 individuals who crossed the 160-kilometer stretch of ocean in small boats, including inflatable rafts, the kind that could capsize with just a single gust of wind.
A viral video on Douyin, China's version of TikTok, stunned viewers, showing a man speaking with a Beijing accent planting a Chinese flag on a beach, purportedly in Taiwan. The red flag with yellow stars, staked into the sand, struck a blow to Taiwan's pride. Authorities in Taipei are urgently investigating the man's identity and probing potential insider assistance in these undetected crossings. Some apprehended individuals include father-son pairs or lone actors, detained immediately upon reaching shore. However, the small size of these boats makes them nearly invisible to radar, forcing Taipei to enhance coastal cameras, surveillance systems, and even underwater sensors. Though sporadic, experts warn these incidents are not mere border violations, but part of a sophisticated psychological strategy to erode confidence in Taiwan's defense capabilities and gradually weaken its government's response. Under current law, illegal border crossers face up to 5 years in prison and a fine of 500,000 Taiwanese dollars, approximately $16,500. However, penalties are often reduced or waived if no harm or injury occurs.
Let's recall the 1990s, when a wave of hijackings from China to Taiwan once made headlines. Most of those cases ended with short-term detention and deportation. But now, according to Deputy Coast Guard Commander Xi Jingjin, the recent small boat sea crossings may represent a new phase of gray zone tactics, actions that appear isolated but are deliberately designed to disrupt perceptions and test the limits of Taiwan's defenses. Notably, the People's Liberation Army had just released a series of high-stakes aerial encounters between its combat helicopters and foreign forces, with aircraft reportedly closing into within less than 10 meters of each other. A deadly proximity where even the slightest miscalculation could ignite a catastrophic aerial dogfight. According to CCTV, in just 10 days, there were 11 such fierce confrontations. Yet all details, including time, location, and the identities of those involved, remain tightly sealed. No Western outlets have reported on it. No confirmation from the other side. Everything shrouded in a fog of strategic ambiguity.
The focal point of these encounters is pilot Wang Ling from the PLA Army Air Corps under the Eastern Theater Command, responsible for the East China Sea and Taiwan Strait. Wang recounted being combat-ready during approaches by foreign forces. In one instance, despite poor weather, he spotted a helicopter, likely from a nearby ship. When he moved to investigate, the opposing helicopter charged within 10 meters, attempting to force a retreat, only to withdraw quickly. The next day, the helicopter returned, sparking a tense aerial chase at 300 meters altitude, where Wang successfully forced the target to retreat. Over 10 consecutive days, with 11 combat sorties, Wang and his team steadfastly countered provocations. Earlier, in January, his colleague, pilot Yang Yaodong, intercepted a helicopter suspected to be a U.S. Navy MH-60R Seahawk, though the opponent's nationality was not disclosed.
On the diplomatic front, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi held an important meeting this week with acting Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi. He also joined Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar in an informal trilateral meeting, a move that opens the door to strategic cooperation among the three neighboring countries amid the region's mounting political and security challenges.
Last month, Taliban's acting Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi raised concerns about the expulsion of tens of thousands of Afghans from Pakistan during a rare meeting with Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar. The event marked a pivotal thaw in long-strained relations between the two nations.
You're still watching This Week in the World. A shocking incident has erupted in the heart of Jenin, once described as the most volatile flashpoint in the West Bank. Suddenly, the city was engulfed in a chaotic firestorm with gunshots ringing out like thunder, shattering the last remnants of fragile peace. A diplomatic delegation representing more than 20 nations, initially on a peacekeeping mission, was abruptly caught in the crossfire, turning into prey in an unannounced hail of bullets, frantically scrambling for survival amid the chaos and carnage. The moment, captured in harrowing detail by AFP, played out like a scene from a survival film. Haunted eyes, trembling hands, clutching one another, all as the deafening cracks of gunfire exploded around them.
Fierce backlash erupted not only from European powers like the UK, France, Germany, and Italy, but spread globally, igniting unprecedented outrage. The United Nations branded the incident unacceptable, demanding Israel ensure the absolute safety of diplomats, posing a significant challenge for Tel Aviv. Amid a storm of criticism, Israel explained the incident as a warning shot after the diplomatic convoy entered a restricted area. Despite no casualties, Israel's apology only fueled suspicion and discontent. The Palestinian Authority labeled it a deliberate attack on the diplomatic group, turning the incident into a media firestorm that rocked global opinion. The criticism intensified as EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas angrily demanded prosecution of those responsible. Nations including Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, and Uruguay summoned Israeli ambassadors or raised the issue in diplomatic forums. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney bluntly called it utterly unacceptable, pressing Tel Aviv for an immediate, transparent explanation.
And from the Middle East, a wave of condemnation is echoing loud and clear. Egypt has denounced the attack as a serious violation of all diplomatic norms, while Turkey has called for an urgent investigation, warning that those responsible will be held fully accountable. All of this unfolds as Gaza sinks deeper into a humanitarian nightmare under tight blockade and relentless Israeli airstrikes. The international community is intensifying pressure on Tel Aviv to immediately halt the attacks and allow humanitarian aid to reach the devastated territory. But on the ground, tensions continue to escalate, and despite ongoing diplomatic efforts, the steps toward peace remain tentative and insufficient to break the vicious cycle of violence. Amid the chaos as U.S. Senate hearing, Secretary of State Marco Rubio could not conceal his concern, issuing a stark warning. Syria is inching toward the brink of a new civil war, with the risk of eruption now counted in weeks. He emphasized the growing danger posed by the resurgence of ISIS and Iran's expanding influence, both of which are pushing Syria's transitional government into a perilous state of instability, hanging by a thread.
Rubio warned, the new government cannot survive long without urgent assistance. A horrific civil war will tear Syria apart if the world remains indifferent. Minority communities, like the Alawites and Druze, are facing intense attacks, plunging the region into a bloody sectarian conflict. The statement comes as Syria descends into fresh violence, following the ousting of former President Bashar al-Assad in December last year by Islamist-led forces. Recent attacks targeting Alawite and Druze communities have sparked fears of a large-scale sectarian conflict. Earlier, President Trump visited Saudi Arabia, lifting sanctions on Syria and endorsing transitional leader Ahmed al-Sharaa, whom he described as a young charismatic figure. However, Sharaa was previously on a U.S. wanted list for ties to jihadist groups. Foreign Secretary Rubio was candid. Even with support, Sharaa's success is uncertain. Without it, failure is guaranteed. During a tense meeting with Syria's foreign minister in Turkey, Rubio expressed concerns over Iran's coordination with Assad regime remnants, noting Israel's escalating strikes on Syrian military targets to counter Tehran's influence.
Meanwhile, on May 19, Iran's foreign ministry sent shockwaves through the region by officially announcing its willingness to consider joining a regional nuclear alliance, a weighty move that could fundamentally reshape the balance of power in the Middle East and the Gulf. At the same time, Tehran's reaffirmed its unwavering commitment to pursuing uranium enrichment, defying all external pressure, a defiant message aimed squarely at the international community.
After 4 rounds of indirect talks with the U.S. mediated by Oman, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baqai stated that a uranium enrichment alliance is not a new concept, previously proposed by multiple nations, and Iran welcomes any initiative for peace. However, he stressed that no alliance can replace Iran's national nuclear program. According to the New York Times, Tehran proposed a joint uranium enrichment venture with Arab states and sought U.S. funding as an alternative to Washington's demand to halt its nuclear program. Foreign Minister Abbas Araqi was unequivocal. Agreement or not, Iran will continue enriching uranium, directly challenging U.S. envoy Stephen Witkoff, who declared Washington cannot accept Iran having even a 1% chance of uranium enrichment. Iran has enriched uranium to 60%, far exceeding the 3.67% limit set by the 2015 deal, though short of the 90% needed for nuclear weapons. Tehran insists its nuclear program is for civilian purposes, but the U.S. and the West remain skeptical, accusing Washington of double-dealing in negotiations.
And it didn't stop there. On May 21st, Iran's parliament made headlines as it officially ratified a 20-year strategic partnership agreement with Russia, a landmark turning point that ushers in a new era of unshakable alliance between the two powers. The defense cooperation commitments are steeped in resolve, and upcoming joint military exercises are expected to resound like thunder, issuing a direct challenge to any threat looming over the region.
Since the Ukraine war began, Iran-Russia military ties have deepened, despite Tehran's denials of supplying weapons to Moscow. The agreement extends beyond military cooperation, encompassing economics, banking, and national financial products, symbolizing integration and defiance against Western isolation. Last month, a free trade agreement between Iran and the Eurasian Economic Union took effect, opening new prospects for robust trade among sanctioned economies.
Amid escalating tensions, the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier has finally departed the Red Sea, closing a perilous and grueling mission, one marked by undeniable losses. 3 FA-18 Super Hornet fighter jets worth tens of millions of dollars vanished into the night, and a tragic friendly fire incident caused by the USS Gettysburg cruiser claimed alive, a somber reminder of the risks at sea. Now the USS Truman is headed for the Mediterranean Sea, gearing up for intense joint exercises with NATO, before returning to its home base in Norfolk, Virginia, where the stories of war and power will continue to write a new chapters of fire and blood.
According to NATO's Allied Joint Force Command in Naples, posted on social media, the USS Harry S. Truman and its strike group are actively conducting exercises in the Mediterranean. Open-source intelligence reports indicate the carrier moved north through the Suez Canal last weekend. The Middle East, where the Truman began its mission in December, has been turbulent, with the carrier suffering serious incidents, including the loss of 3 F/A-18 Super Hornet jets, each valued at $60 million. A shocking moment occurred when the USS Gettysburg, part of the Truman's strike group, mistakenly shot down an F/A-18 in the Red Sea, an incident the U.S. military acknowledged as an unfortunate accident.
At the same time, an unexpected geopolitical shift is quietly taking shape right in the heart of North America. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, once known for his vocal opposition to President Donald Trump, is now signaling a willingness to invest in the $175 billion Golden Dome space-based missile defense mega project, a sweeping initiative personally proposed and directed by the U.S. President himself.
Prime Minister Carney revealed that Ottawa is seriously considering joining this ultimate defense network, aiming to build an iron shield against missile attacks from powers like China and Russia. Days ago, Trump finalized the system's design, assigning command to a top U.S. Space Force general, signaling a new era of defense. At a tense May 21st press conference, Carney confirmed secret talks with Trump on the project, asserting Canada could become a strategic investor. While withholding specifics, he emphasized the plan is under serious high-level consideration. From Trump's adversary to a space military partner, Carney is entering a high-stakes, ambitious geopolitical game.
Meanwhile, the situation on the European stage is no less dramatic. According to Frada, the old continent is quietly shifting into a wartime posture with a speed and scale that has even long-standing allies like the United Kingdom taken aback. Germany, a nation once associated with decades of fire and steel, is now rising with force and determination, ready to turn its long-held dream of renewed military might into reality. And the enemy has been clearly identified: Russia.
With Trump's return to the White House and his declaration that the U.S. will no longer subsidize Europe's defense, EU nations are waking up in panic. If war breaks out, who will save them? The harsh answer: they must save themselves. 3 years of Ukraine aid have depleted Europe's arsenals. French President Macron admitted bitterly, "We've given Ukraine everything." Poland has quietly stepped back. NATO's role has faded, and Germany has seized the spotlight. New German Chancellor Friedrich Merz was blunt, pledging to raise defense spending to 5% of GDP, with 1.5% dedicated to war infrastructure. The goal is to nearly double troop numbers from 260,000 to 460,000, amend the constitution to lift debt limits, and prepare for conflict if needed. Merz openly called Russia the main enemy, accusing Moscow of sabotaging undersea cables and launching cyber attacks on Europe, though evidence remains thin. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen unveiled an unprecedented €800 billion plan to rearm the EU. Critics have labeled it a historic corruption scheme.
However, the price of rearmament may be nothing short of an economic catastrophe for Germany, Europe's leading industrial powerhouse, now plunging into free fall, losing factories and shedding jobs. Pumping billions into military means drastic cuts to social welfare programs, threatening to undermine the most stable political foundation on the continent. Another critical development is unfolding in the northern frontier, where Finland is also bracing for heightened tensions. The country's military has warned that Russia is likely to intensify its military presence along the shared border once the war in Ukraine de-escalates, amid a wave of reports suggesting that Moscow is expanding its operations near NATO's edge. Major General Sami Nurmi, commander of the Finnish Defense Forces, made it clear that we are closely monitoring every move Russia makes and preparing for the worst-case scenarios.
According to Finland's border guard, the first 35 kilometers of a planned 200-kilometer fence along the eastern border, closed for over a year, has been completed. The move follows Helsinki's accusations that Moscow is orchestrating migrant flows as part of a hybrid campaign. The new fence is equipped with cameras and sensors to distinguish between humans and animals crossing the border.
Satellite images released by the New York Times reveal that Russia is rapidly expanding its military infrastructure near the Finnish border, including newly constructed facilities, renovated aircraft shelters, and a modernized helicopter base. Major General Nurmi issued a stark warning. Russia is restructuring its forces, preparing to redeploy troops from the Ukrainian battlefield to the border region in an effort to fortify a new defense posture. While he emphasized that the situation remains under control for now, these developments have sparked deep concern across Finnish defense circles.
Russia's strategic adjustments are unsurprising, especially after Finland joined NATO in 2023 in response to the Ukraine invasion. However, Major General Nurmi noted, current moves are moderate. The question is whether Russia is reinforcing Ukraine or strengthening forces near our border. It could be both. Finnish citizens are increasingly accustomed to security risks from the east, with a surge in registrations for emergency training courses. Nasta Association, which trains women for crisis response, reported over 800 women enrolled in spring courses, with classes filling up within 3 to 4 minutes.
Meanwhile, beneath the frozen veil of the north, where the White Sea's waters remain quiet but never truly peaceful, Russia is quietly awakening a sleeping giant, the Burevestnik, also known as Skyfall, a nuclear-powered cruise missile with an almost unlimited range. Amid the snow-covered pine forest of the Nenukska testing site, satellite images now clearly reveal new launch platforms, massive missile hangars, dedicated rail systems, and secret military barracks, as if a war machine is being ramped, winding up for the day it will be unleashed.
Satellite imagery reveals new buildings, military tents, specialized rail systems for missile transport, and massive launch platforms facing the sea. This is the testing ground for Russia's most fearsome missiles, the lightning-fast hypersonic Zircon, the ruthlessly precise Onyx, the versatile Kaliber, and the terrifying Burevestnik, nicknamed Skyfall. Powered by a nuclear reactor, Skyfall boasts near-infinite range and can loiter in terrain for days. The expansion of Nenuksa is not mere testing. It's a chilling warning to NATO. It signals Russia may be readying its strategic arsenal. Amid Moscow's repeated vows to spill blood and expand the battlefield, observers believe Skyfall is a message. After Ukraine, who's next? In 2019, a missile test explosion at Nenuksa killed 5 engineers, injured 3 others, and spiked radiation levels 20 times above normal. A liquid propulsion system failure caused the accident, then just a development mishap. Now, Skyfall may be ready to unleash its full potential.
At the same time, across the Atlantic, President Donald Trump is scripting a new chapter in the nuclear race. He is preparing to sign a series of executive orders to revive the Cold War-era Defense Production Act, aiming to reignite the domestic nuclear energy industry. The goal? To streamline reactor licensing, cut dependence on Russian and Chinese nuclear fuel and technology, and accelerate the construction of a strategic uranium supply chain.
Reuters reports that President Trump will reinstate the Cold War-era Defense Production Act to revitalize the long-dormant U.S. nuclear industry. The executive order will streamline approvals for new reactors, strengthen fuel supply chains, and end reliance on Russian and Chinese uranium and nuclear technology. Federal agencies will identify suitable sites for nuclear development and simplify licensing processes. In essence, the door to a nuclear renaissance will swing wide open this week. Why the urgency? The U.S. is seeing its first electricity demand surge in 20 years, driven by AI and data centers consuming vast energy. Anticipating this, Trump declared a national energy emergency on his first day, greenlighting comprehensive extraction of coal, oil, gas, and uranium across U.S. territory.
And at this moment, the Departments of Energy and Defense have been assigned a critical mission to urgently roll out large-scale nuclear programs backed by loan guarantees and direct federal funding. Because President Trump knows while the United States may have pioneered nuclear technology, if it lags behind now, the 21st century will belong to China. And that concludes this edition of This Week in the World. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye, and we look forward to bringing you more updates in our upcoming broadcasts.